say, what have you done? My days are all worth living, and I know there's some, because you were giving.
Hope you can all hear me. Hello, Vanessa.
Hey.
Hey.
How are you doing? Thanks.
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good. Just here in Brooklyn, in New York. You're in Los
Awesome.
Angeles.
I was wondering where you were located because, you know, there was like a Melbourne, Australia connection and this and that. And then it said you were in Venice, California. So I was wondering where you were.
I feel like I'm all over the place all the time.
Awesome.
I lived in Melbourne I'm from Venice Beach. And are you from Los Angeles as well, right? Are you, or?
Yes. Basically, I was exiled to Georgia for like 5 years, but throughout my whole life, I've basically been a California boy since my parents immigrated from the Netherlands. I was born in the Netherlands, but yeah, definitely a California boy.
Yeah, nice, sweet. So you've been out there for a while. Yeah, I was reading your the blog bio about the echo and the smell and all that stuff, which are just all places that obviously I love and have been to.
Right.
Lived in Echo.
Yeah, I was.
Actually.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, so I'm from Los Angeles, and I left LA when I was like 18, and have been sort of all around the world ever since. I just moved back from Australia, so I was in Australia for 3 years, and it's such a long and tangled story. So I'll try and
well, so what brings us here is your awesome song, The Muscle, song for Kate, which just instantly kind of captivated me. I mean, I tend to like divergent sounds. I don't really like very conventional or comfortable music. I like music that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable at first.
Yeah.
Whether it be because of the themes or the sound or whatever. And your vocal sound just really pulled me in right away. And I know you said you had a laugh about what I wrote about your vocal aesthetic, but it is a very commanding sort of, it has a lot of character within that song. And I just thought it was really, again, it reminded me of a little bit of PJ Harvey kind of smashed in with Janet. Now, I can never say her name, Napolitano from Concrete Blonde. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
I am, yeah.
But she's got this voice. In fact, I thought that I need to ask you sometime to do a cover of Joey by Concrete Blonde, because I think that would be right up your alley.
Cool.
But anyways, that song sounded really dark, even though it was ultimately like a lullaby, a love song, But it did have this kind of dark, I don't know, kind of almost a mythological sound to it in my mind, and that's what I really dug about it. And why I wanted to talk to you was I thought your backstory was real interesting. You said you had a background in film before you became a musician. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I basically I started working in film and television. I worked on an HBO show. I was the director's assistant. I worked for Showtime for a little bit, mostly like at an assistant level, and then I became a documentary researcher. Worked on a PBS documentary documentary, ESPN. Yeah, so basically, but more or less doing a lot of the nitty gritty, like organizing the shoots type of thing. You know,
Right.
just being on set and that kind of a deal.
Just supporting the creative process.
Yeah, exactly. And I had a lot of friends, you know, I mean, this is such a typical LA story, but just being from Los Angeles, you know people, sometimes at least you tend to know people that are in the industry. And it was just something that I fell into. And yeah, and then between that, I would do, have you ever heard of something called AmeriCorps? It's called like it's pretty much the domestic Peace Corps. So it's
Okay.
Peace Corps.
I have heard of
the
it.
United States.
Yeah.
So I kind of got a little fed up with film and television, and I enrolled when I was younger into AmeriCorps, which is basically, it's like 10 months of disaster response and various stuff, just nonprofits. So you go and you're just government laymen, and they send you around in a team of 10 people, and you travel around the United States, like in a van, just tornado relief, flood relief, like earthquakes.
Wow.
Yeah, so I did
That's
that.
very admirable.
Thank you. Yeah, so I did that. I found it very rewarding, and then I kind of didn't stop. So then after I don't know if you remember the Nepal earthquake. That
Yes.
was really big. So I started this cycle of I'd get my money from working on sets, and then when the shoot would wrap, I would go and I would volunteer in whatever country in disaster response, this time with like different NGOs. So after the Nepal earthquake, I went and I was basically just volunteering, moving rubble around and clearing debris and demolishing houses that were like already they just couldn't be saved. And then we were rebuilding schools and houses.
Wow.
Did that for 6 months. But that's when I started actually writing music with the intention of releasing it. Because I had always played guitar ever since I was little, but I never thought I could sing. That's one thing. That was like, for me, I actually used to be really sad about it because like, people would compliment my guitar playing all the time, and they'd be like, oh God, you're such a good guitarist. Like, I love watching you play guitar. And then, but I was so nervous when I would sing that it wasn't really coming out, you know what I mean? And I didn't know that I could sing. I think only like a handful of people, musicians that I knew, believed that I could sing, and everybody else didn't even think of me as a singer. Like, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, you're in the entertainment industry, and you went to school for writing and journalism and, you know, etc. So it's been a shock. It's been a real shock, because when I hear my voice back, like as of late, like definitely that seems to be the one thing that people are like, wow. Like, they're not even talking about the guitar playing. Like, they're just talking about the vocals. So, yeah.
Well, you know, I think a lot of times people who, you know, I mean, they famously said Bob Dylan couldn't sing, you know, I mean, and that's what I was saying about character. In a lot of my reviews, I really gravitate towards singers who have character in their voice, where you feel kind of almost a normal narrative within the sound of their voice. Like they sound either like they're, you know, they've lived life, or they have a road-worn sound or something that distinguishes them as kind of almost a character, like it gives it a cinematic feel.
Right.
And a lot of times this year alone, I've listened to over 7,000 submissions, and you know, I'm the kind of music reviewer who will not give advice necessarily, but tell people why I didn't like what I'm hearing in a nice way. And a lot of times people sing very Disney-fied, you know, like they're singing for there's too much artifice in their sound. And I like singers that sound like they're just bloodletting. They're just emoting. They're giving emotion, and you have that kind of voice, and that's probably what people are hearing. And I could care less if people have, you know, a 3-octave range, or, you know, they're like, I mean, there's great singers like Freddie Mercury who do both, but I always gravitate toward the emotion of the song, and you do that in spades. So, I mean, don't worry about that at all. I know that's hard to hear. And so if you were always kind of a little bit self-conscious of your voice in the past, was it hard for you to perform live? Is that a frightening thing, or is it something that you enjoy?
I've got to tell you the truth. I mean, I have played guitar live before. I have never sung in front of an audience in my life.
Oh, wow.
I haven't. But I think, I mean, I was planning on changing that this year, but then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
I think I would be much more comfortable and commanding about it this time. I mean, I'm very comfortable when I'm recording, and because it's exactly as you're saying, like, so you have, what do you have? You have like the diva voice, right? And that's the singer who can sing, who can hit however many octaves, and it's
Sure.
a polished voice, it's a trained voice, and they can do that. And then you have your character voices, like your Lou Reed, your Nico, and your Bob Dylan, like you said. And those are, I think, I mean, don't get me wrong, everyone's always going to remember Whitney Houston, like, and she had a totally
Right.
polished voice. So I don't want to discredit one over the other, but I think having, for the most part, you know, like having a character is how you stand out, and it's about the message. And it's always going to be the case that there's some people that it doesn't resonate with, but then there's going to
Sure.
be loads of other people where it does. So, God, what was your question? I think I just went on a rant.
Well, now my question was about singing live, and you've already answered that. But
Yeah.
and let me be fully clear: you're a good singer too. You don't sing off key or anything like that. You're
I
a
know.
really good
Yeah.
singer. But more importantly, I think you possess, and I've heard, you know, the muscle, and then I listened to True Shot, which was a little bit of a different style, but it still has kind of that gothic, kind of westerny tone.
Yeah.
You mentioned one of your inspirations was Link Ray, and that's like a perfect, you know, kind of sharing the same DNA there. So that's really cool. But yeah, I totally think that, especially singer-songwriter, and with the huge explosion in the last 10 years of kind of a lot of women singers who are kind of singer-songwriters, there's just that real evocative sense that people gravitate towards, you know. And you know, besides your lyrics, and, you know, I thought your lyrics were really interesting in this song. The start of the chorus, the cross 3 million countries through many ailing valleys, that kind of like sets this really, like, you know, like I said, kind of almost a mythological tone, you know, like of an Amazon person just, like, you know, going to the nth degree to see somebody they care about, you know. And that's why I said, which was kind of, you know, probably off-putting, but I left it in the review. I said that it could also be almost felt like it could have a dark, unhealthy possession, like stalking, you know.
Yeah.
It has kind of that yin and yang sound to those lyrics, and that's also intriguing. But it is a totally trustworthy, devoted love song, and a really great song. I mean, that's going to be on one of my best of songs at the end of the year. I mean, it's a really good song. And the muscle. Now, that's another thing that's very interesting and poetic. Calling us, I mean, a song "The Muscle," which I assume you're talking about heart, like the heart's a muscle. Is that where the title, or is it something different?
It's something, okay, so that's the first thing that you would think of, but that's not, that is, yes, one of the intentions, but actually the name of it came from, the last lines are, you know, the muscle on the bone. So the idea is you're standing in one place, like, my love would never run. So the storm is strong. So there's a lot of, like, faster analogies in it. And, you know, the idea is this person is the love is strong. This person's dedication is so strong that it's the muscle around the bone, and that's what the fiber of the relationship is, and so that's why it's called muscle.
There you go.
But
That's even more
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. But
I went for the obvious. Yeah, I'm looking at the lyrics right now. Yeah, very cool, and very cool that that's another thing that people. It's funny how people. I get a lot of emo and math rock and progressive kind of indie rock, which I go through phases of enjoying it and then not really enjoying all that work. Like your song basically is around an E chord, and it's that's fine.
Yeah.
I was playing it, I'm a musician, and I was just thinking around on your song, and there's something really beautiful about that, because it's just kind of, the music just becomes this kind of framework for your emotions and your words, instead of, going into a bridge and doing this and, downbeats, and, it's just, I like that song because it's just this kind of a slow, like, ascension, and
Right.
it's a really cool song. I would be absolutely proud of that song if I wrote a song like that.
Thank you. Well, it's interesting because so that song, it was basically, it's an experiment. So I wrote it for my girlfriend as a gift, and then my friends really liked it, and she really liked it. So I was like, well, I guess.
So you played for your friends before you played it for your girlfriend?
No, I played it for my girlfriend first. And
okay.
And then I played it. My friends had played it for them afterward.
Right.
But the thing is, it wasn't just the person who it was a gift for who liked it, although that's the most meaningful thing. But when I noticed that other people really liked it too, I was like, well, maybe it's so personal, but it will still appeal because it's so personal. It would be good to release it. But I knew for a fact though or I had a sense that you basically said it's an E chord throughout, and it is. And
right.
I knew that when I did that, I was going to get flack for that. It's funny because the song it's on the Submit Hub popular charts right now in
awesome.
So it's done really well for Submit Hub because the rejection rate is normally so high. And I got a lot of response from it, but there were just as many people that were like, it's the same chord throughout the entire song. It's too slow. I can't get into this. That's another thing. I knew that I was taking a risk by making the tempo that slow, because when you listen, so I used to volunteer at a radio station, and we were in the music library, and we'd go through all the music. And when you listen to songs that have a faster tempo, and then all of a sudden we hear a slow song, it sounds even slower than it normally would.
Right.
You're conditioned to hearing it a certain way. So I knew that these Submit Hub bloggers would be they'd be click next. They'd be this is, if you're not,
they're it's not 120 beats per minute,
Exactly, and it doesn't have a traditional pop structure. It's just it doesn't have the change ups. It doesn't have drums. It's just supposed to be lyrically driven, and just my task was, so what happened was when I was sitting down to write it, I was trying more complex things, ideas, and they weren't working. And then I was thinking of that song. I don't know if you know it. It's by Edward Sharpe. It's called Simplest Love. And
yes.
It's a simple song, and the whole idea of the song is based around a simple song for a simple love, right? And I was like, well, what if I took that idea and I stripped it down? I made the simplest song I could possibly make. And it just couldn't, I removed all the extra instrumentation and do the same thing again and see if I could make it work. And that's how it came about. But and for me, it totally works.
It does work.
What? Yeah, I think
I said it does work. And it works because, it's different.
Right. You probably don't get a lot of songs like that, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I get a lot of songs that tempo, but they're usually in kind of the beach house, you know, kind of dream pop type of thing. But the reason this was different was it was very gothic, really stark. And again, you have to really realize how different your voice is, and that's such a great thing to have. And just I can tell by your writing that you have, you know, an interesting aesthetic, you know, that the way you decided to do it. And the one chord thing was brilliant. I mean, it's like I totally get it, you know. And I can't off the top of my head, but there's a couple of other, I wouldn't say iconic songs that are kind of based around a simple structure like that. But in your song, that sound, it's kind of like just hitting a keyboard note over and over again, you know, like droning through, which would normally somebody might do in a certain, you know, to get a certain feeling in a song that has a lot of chords throughout. Yours works, number one, the E, you have to do an E. It wouldn't work with a higher chord, obviously. But, right, I mean, because an E is just, it covers the folk sound, it covers a kind of a gothic sound, it covers a heavy, you know, even a rock sound. I mean, that's the perfect chord you pick. I like how you do the low E and then you pick to the, you know, the B string, basically, or B note. And it just works because it's almost kind of like a mantric sound, you know. It's almost like a mantra going throughout, and then you're just having all these emotions. It's almost, it's not spoken word because you're not doing spoken word, but it's almost like that where some spoken word artists will have very minimal thing going on, and you're talking around. It's great. It's again, it reminded me of like something about it reminded me of like PJ Harvey's Rid of Me album, even though that album is almost kind of like her doing Nirvana. So it's a lot different, but something about the attitude of some of her songs on there. And then again, Concrete Blonde. And there's a particular song that Concrete Blonde does, and I can't remember what album it's on, that I think it's about the Kennedy assassination. And there's certain passages in there where her voice reminds me of your voice the most. And I've always had kind of a love affair with her voice, and now with your voice. So, but it's great. It's great. I wanted to ask you about True Shot real quickly. You have a line in there mentioning Molly Ringwald, Tina Turner, Lucy Lawless, and Gina Davis.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask you briefly why you picked them. I mean, of course, Molly Ringwald. No, I'm just kidding. But actually, all of them are just, you know, strong women. You know, Tina Turner. You know, Lucy Lawless. Lucy Lawless would be the one in The Muscle, like climbing over the mountains to get to her lover. You know. But anyways, why did you pick those? Did it just sound good together, or did you like them? Is there some kind of, you know, thing going on there?
So the True Shot is about, it's again, so you picked up on this when you were talking about the lyrics for The Muscle and how it feels sort of folklore-y, sort of mythological, right? So I think my lyrics can be a bit like that, and they deal with narratives. So basically True Shot is about a small, this is so abstract, I guess, or a bit abstract, but it's about a small city that gets destroyed in 1994 by a heroin epidemic. So it takes you through this narrator who, it's not me personally. I mean, I wasn't, you know, 1994 was a long time ago. I would have been too young. But like, I think the song takes you through like this girl who's explaining that back in 94 there was a storm and it hit me hard. And you know, Storm Rider, what are the lyrics? Storm Rider on the boulevard or something. And she says that she had these heroes. So Molly Ringwald was her savior. Like, despite having people that she looks up to, like Lucy Lawless and Tina Turner, she still becomes a heroin addict. She still falls victim like everyone else in town.
Right.
Like, they're just iconic people that I just love them. Like, so I was obsessed with Xena Warrior Princess when I was a kid. It was like one of my like earliest, you know, gay realizations was like my obsession with Xena Warrior Princess.
Ah, wow. And she,
So
and
that's like, you know, which is a really common thing like in the lesbian community that you find people that are obsessed with.
oh, that's interesting.
So, I mean,
You
yeah,
know, but also she was just, you know, for everybody, she was just this, you know, one of the first, like, besides maybe the Powerpuff Girls or whatever, she was one of the first, like, empowerment, you know, women empowerment. You know, that character was just for everybody, was a kind of, you know, heralding in that kind of women empowerment thing. So too. So, but I did not know that she was kind of iconic lesbian poster girl. I did not know that.
She is. She's the post, because that narrative, that's another thing. The narrative in this is so, I can't believe we're talking about this. The narrative in Xena Warrior Princess was one of the first lesbian narratives on a TV series, but they never explicitly said it. So her and her sidekick were basically like gay together, and there was all of this lesbian subtext, but like they could never just like outwardly say it. But if you listen to interviews with the actors,
I remember that now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
That was the whole thing. But and then obviously she's just like, you know, smoking hot pretty much. But
yeah.
Other than that.
So that was interesting. It's interesting how you definitely, maybe because of your background with film and everything, when you put out your music, and now it's not as easy because, you know, I'm thinking of the 70s, how the 70s was so great because people put out vinyl and you had liner notes and you would have sometimes even a little booklet. I mean, your liner notes sound like they'd be fascinating. I mean, just listening to the story behind True True Shot sounded like it could be a movie in and of itself, you know, about a town that is having a heroin epidemic. So, I mean, it's very interesting how it almost reminds me of my favorite all-time, I have a lot of favorite all-time iconic bands, but one of my favorite bands that kind of inform my attempt at writing and things like that, and also just I love them so much, is the Pixies.
Oh, me too. I love the Pixies.
Yeah, and they are, you know, Charles or Black Francis, he writes in that way too, where he when he explains his stories, he's not very verbose. I mean, he doesn't talk much. He doesn't do many interviews, but when he does, and he starts going on about what his songs mean, and, you know, and he has songs that are like Broken Face, you know, that are basically about, you know, incest and just weird things. And he's like, his mind is just full of these kind of backstories, you know, so he could go on about what his songs are about in the same way. And I always find that fascinating. I always like when people kind of have a backstory, just like a actor it's helpful to have a backstory when you're playing a character.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating, some songwriters who, you know, some songwriters will just make up crap, you know, just like what sounds good. Some write informed on politics, social commentary, whatever. But I find it interesting when there's this depth of storytelling. So that's very cool.
Yeah, same.
But I was curious. Because go ahead.
Well, it's funny. Like and I don't know about the people watching either, but like, or, you know, it seems like you listen to lyrics too, but like I always listen to lyrics. Like when I hear a song, I can't not listen to them, and I evaluate songs partly by what the singer is saying, and sometimes I'll be like, oh, that was sort of not a very good lyric, but it kind of works here, or this song has terrible lyrics, or wow, these are great, really interesting. But I've found, when I've told that to a few people, they've been like, oh, I don't really listen to the lyrics of the song. And I'm like, oh, they're like, no, it's just about the melody for me and the feeling. And I'm like, oh yeah, totally. Like the melody and the feeling are the most important part of a song, like I think. But like the lyrics are so, you know what I mean? Like they're so important.
Sure. And, I'm exactly the same way. I'm totally into the lyrics. That's why I gravitate to bands like Radiohead or, again, the Pixies. But when people are saying that, at least for me, the beat, the melody is kind of like when you're attracted to somebody's looks. You know, you see somebody at a party and you're attracted to their looks, but then you start talking to them and they're vapid and they have nothing to say. So the lyrical content and everything is important. It's one of the things that I am most what turns me off on songs is if the lyrics are just so commonplace or so cliche, or they're using phrases that people say in about 30 different other songs, and it happens a lot, as you know, especially with pop music, because it sells. But the lyrics are everything to me, and that's what interested me too. Just the fact that you had a love song, and it was called "The Muscle." I mean, that's very unusual. So I kind of like songs that have askew poetry, and if you ever get into the blog, most of the artists that I feature, there will be the post-punk / surf punk, whatever, just songs that just have a great sound. But a lot of the times, it's songs that have a lot of talented artists that have really interesting lyrics, and they go beyond that kind of surface stuff. They swim a little deeper than just, you know, the shallow end of the pond. And yeah, that's super important to me. But I get that from people too. Like, people go, I don't really care about the lyrics. And I like a lot of shoegaze too, which sometimes the lyrics are buried. And so you have to kind of find them, and then you find them and they're really good lyrics, and you're like, wow, you know, and then you have to look, you know, read them because you can't hear them in the song. One thing I liked about your song, and it obviously makes sense because it's not a highly produced song, is that you could hear your lyrics really well without having to go find them, you know. And because you're storytelling, that's really good. That's really good. You don't bury them with a lot of, you know, cloning or sound effects, or, I mean, I'm sure you have a little bit here and there. Everybody does. And what you did on that was really good. I don't know who produced that. I think you said who produced it.
I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
good job.
Thank you. I think the guitar had a...
Oh, speaking of...
Yeah, go on.
Speaking of production, I noticed that you mentioned Phil Danu in your press notes. And his Elephant Castle stuff is like amazing.
Yeah, it is really cool. I was at his house before he was releasing it, and because I am like best friends with his wife, and so that's at Phil, and then we kind of just were really into each other's music, and yeah, so he played it for me before he was like, yeah, I'm finally starting Elephant Castle. It's this independent project, and we went into his studio at his house, and yeah, I just thought it was, yeah, just great stuff. Really, really great stuff.
Yeah,
he excited to be releasing his own stuff, so it's really cool seeing him.
Yeah, he contacted me through the blog, and I think I covered like 3 of his songs, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I shared with him that I hated Foster the People. And but I really like his stuff. And again, he's the opposite of you, obviously, because he's doing a very pop, almost glam pop thing, but he does it so earnestly. And he also, within that kind of sound, he does write really good lyrics as well. So, and really good melodies. But I didn't mean to get off. I just noticed his name here.
No, it's okay. I thought you were going to ask about it, actually, because I know that you covered, I saw that you covered My Muse by him like yesterday.
Yeah.
So, really good review.
That was really good. Yeah, that's a really cool song.
Yeah, I thought you might ask, so cool.
So you have those 2 songs out. When are you going to put some more songs together for an EP, or what's going to be the next step?
Well, so I am working on another song right now. For a second, back on.
Yeah, sorry.
Plan is to have it out in 2 months. So just like a 1 month marketing lead time, and then it'll be done in 3 weeks into marketing, pre-marketing. But I think I was gonna release an EP, but economically, it's like, I don't know. It just, there's just part of the way, like, it's weird the way music is released now. It's so great in some ways, like, because it puts more power into musicians' hands to kind of release your music when you want to and whatnot. But you have to constantly be producing content. And so it's like a singles era now where you just like have a single and you release it every month or every 2 months. And I think right now that's what I'll be doing for a bit, and then hopefully just like putting it all together into an album with like a couple of fresh tracks on it is what I would like to do.
Yeah, unfortunately, the economics of the music biz right now is that it's forcing musicians and artists to become more marketers. And a lot of artists and musicians are not marketers. They don't even feel comfortable marketing their own stuff. And so you have to be constantly on, or, doing little live sets on social media and stuff, which, by the way, might be a good thing for you because to get you used to singing live. But I know a lot of musicians who, they don't want to do that. They don't want to be on YouTube every minute and in everybody's face, but it's, the economics of it is really tough. I really feel for musicians in a lot of ways compared to, I heard Debbie Harry and Chris Stein on an interview talking about, I guess they were basically in the 70s when they started Blondie, and how back then in Brooklyn or some part of New York where they were, you could literally have an apartment for like $80 a month. They said it was like a very scary part of town, but because you could do that, you could afford to be a struggling artist. Mm-hmm. So there was an artist community because at least you could afford to live and eat. You can't afford to be a struggling artist anymore.
No, you can't.
In today's world. So, again, you're right. You do have that benefit of creating everything in the box, getting on your DAWs program and whatever you're using and creating music. But number one, Spotify's not going to pay you shit.
No, exactly.
And
if you
Spotify's
tutorial playlist, like your streams are never going to be that high unless like
right.
You know what I mean? So there's like a gatekeeper aspect to it, just as there was with the record industry, like
I know
years ago. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you. What were you saying?
No, you're fine. It's kind of this platform's a little bit weird for talking, but I like it so far. It's the first time I did an interview. I've done interviews face to face and I've done phone interviews, but I've never done an IG interview, and I thought I would try it out with you. So you're the guinea pig, so to speak. But you've been great, and you've given such a good wealth of information, and also just easy to talk to. Thank you, and I really, really hope that send me your material. I'm looking forward to hearing more of it. Hoping that sometime what's great about your connections. I can tell that you're very, you probably have a lot of connections and good at networking. I'm telling you, that song, another thing about The Muscle, when I heard it, I thought to myself, with being in quarantine and watching so much TV now, watching so much Netflix and a lot of good and bad movies, I thought that's like a song that should be in a movie. Really? And that might be a good path for you because you have those connections to maybe, forget Spotify and just get that song in a movie, because I'm telling you, that is a really great song to be in a movie. It just has a very cinematic, dark sound. A lot of songs now, with the kind of David Lynchian type thing, and strange things, and just the propensity to be kind of avant-garde and different. I'm telling you, your song would just be so awesome in a movie. So I hope some filmmakers are listening out there. So.
Oh, I hope so too. Yeah, no, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Maybe I should focus on that. I had thought of it, but it's like, it's yeah, like it's like a delicate thing, like with these music coordinators, like finding the right way to reach out to them, and also like, important people, but like you don't want to. Important people get, or quote unquote important.
Yeah, you
people,
don't want to bother them.
they get hit up a lot, like
Yeah.
for people asking them for things, and so like you have to be very selective about like what favors you ask. And I'm gonna try. Yeah, I think it's just a question of. I mean, you're totally right. I just need to figure out a way to like do it in a way that feels genuine, probably, if that makes any sense, in a way that is skillful, that's not like, do this for me, and et cetera, et cetera.
What's the project that Billy Bob Thornton does? God, it's escaping me. It's a really good show.
Oh, my friend writes on that show. Still the King, isn't it? Or something like that? Or
No,
that's
it's
not the show. I'm thinking of Miley Cyrus's
oh
Miley Cyrus's dad. That's Billy Ray Cyrus.
oh my God, it's bugging me now. I'm gonna have to look it up real quick before you leave, because I was just thinking, it's on the tip of my tongue. I think his show is going to have only one more season. Oh, Goliath. I don't know if you've gotten into Goliath. It's a really interesting, dark, weird show. They'll have a lot of surreal things, and at least last season, a lot of weird dreams and stuff, because it had to do with a lot of the antagonists were taking peyote and certain mind-altering substances. But there was an artist on there, and they basically had her redo other people's songs, and she got really kind of big from it, and her name's escaping me too. But it was very much like your stuff, very much, guitar, female singer, very dark. And I don't want to keep saying that Muscle is dark, because it probably to you it isn't, but it has a dark quality.
I wanted to talk to you about this, actually. So this was like, you were one of the first people to post about the song when it was released, and like I had so people had said before that my music was dark, but I had no idea that The Muscle was a dark song. For me, it was like, I was like, oh, okay, maybe my other stuff was like too dark. I'm going to do a much lighter song this time. And I realize now what it is. I think that my voice just colors every track dark, like, because it's intrinsically such a dark voice. I think not, it's sort of like the way Cat Power's voice, it's like she could sing a totally, like if someone else were singing that song, it would not be nearly as dark, but there's something about her vocal tone that just colors everything in a dark way. And maybe some of it has to do with the delivery as well. But
it does, it's the delivery, but it's also just the melody,
the melody's dark.
It's like,
oh, interesting.
It's like across 3 million countries, and it's kind of almost like declarative, like if it was sped up, and this is gonna make you laugh, but if it was sped up, it would almost be like an Irish pub, like a drinking song,
right?
Because it has that kind of thrust, like let's go kick some ass, and also, but you have phrases like ailing valleys. I mean, you have dark phrases, an ailing valley, which is really a beautiful way to look, to put, two different things together. And I think that's what, but it's very brooding. Let me put it that way. It's brooding. What's that song by talk show host, I think, by Radiohead, where he I mean, I
love that song.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song, but it has a very brooding nature, and very, and I wouldn't consider Radiohead dark, but there is a very dark sadness there in a lot of his stuff. And I didn't hear this as sad. I heard it as dark, like dark. That's why I said that. I said your deep, resonant vocal aesthetic that it feels like a hulking, scary presence. And now talking to you, you're so nice. I feel bad for writing that, but it does have a very evocative, you know, kind of. I was going to write in the review, but I thought it would be very weird.
What were you going to say?
Before I picked that, because I was trying to think, how do I say what I'm feeling, but say it in the correct way? So a few times when my wife and I have gone to plays, like Santa Monica Playhouse, years ago, we went to a play. I don't go to them very often. And it's a very small theater. So there's people like right in your face doing really very dramatic, you know, scenes, like a husband and wife, you like, you know, yelling at each other about abuse or whatever. And you're sitting like literally like 3 feet away from them, you know? It's very weird and very overwhelming emotionally. And I was going to put in the review that if you were singing that on stage and you just happened to look at me in that commanding presence, I'd probably piss myself. And then I said, well, I don't want to put that in a review, you know. But your voice does, and that song, have a very, very palpable, you know, formidable presence. And but then on True Shot, it changes. So, you know, and that's what I like about it, that you have kind of a persona. You're not a one-trick pony. You know, your voice can do different things. And so, believe me, that ability to kind of shake it up and is totally a wonderful thing. But no, I love your voice, and I love that song. But it's funny, yeah, that you never thought it had a dark sound, because, you know, I would have thought that if you singing that way, that you're purposely trying to make it sound like a dark song. You know.
This is a weird thing. So the thing is like, I feel like everything I don't come across as like a dark person or whatever, but I think there's inherently, I've had I've had a lot of experiences, and I think it's just something, it just comes naturally. I don't know, every time I'm letting something out, it's there. I don't know. It's basically like, it's a conscious thing for me to actually try and make something lighter. That's what's conscious for me, not like making dark stuff. But no, you're right. There is definitely a darkness to it. But
it's funny you said that.
What?
It's funny you just said that, because about making a conscious effort more on the opposite, to not make it sound too happy or light or whatever. And when I'm writing songs, something inside me too, I hate to write songs that sound too happy.
I make an effort to try to be happier. That's how dark.
Oh, okay.
Inherently dark. The stuff that I release.
I got you.
Because for me, the music is like cathartic. So you're releasing something that, like, because I've always had a dark side. It's like I am a nice person for sure, but like the darkness is like the most familiar thing to me. If that makes
I got you.
That makes sense. But
that makes
you were
sense.
saying that you have to try to be darker and more serious when you write songs, or
yeah, I just feel like and I've thought to myself that might be a problem. That maybe it's okay to be, you know, happier in songs and stuff. And as of late, but especially with the way the world is, but that's funny that you're kind of overreaching, trying to be happier, and you're still getting kind of
I
a
feel
dark
like I
sound.
have a problem, because the thing is like,
yeah, that's funny.
Here's the thing that worries me, and I'm not going to let it change me too much or anything, but sometimes I worry. I'm like, oh God, like what if it's too dark to be popular? You know what I mean? What if it's like, you know, because people generally, like, they gravitate. I don't know. I don't want to make these generalizations, because obviously there's a lot of dark music that's popular. But it seems like in terms of what people naturally accept and share and gravitate toward, it's like has more of a kind of upbeat. But I could be wrong. I don't know. There's always exceptions.
Well, I think too that the fact that it's a LGBTQ love song helps in a way. And I don't know, I always feel funny about saying something like this, but people who are gay, it's not that they can't relate to a straight person's song, but maybe they could relate more to somebody who's also gay, in the same way that I just got a submission, or not just, but I had a submission from a trans woman, a man who was becoming a woman, and a lot of the focus of the music is about that trans experience, and so that's part of her press info and stuff. And I didn't like about 2 of the songs she sent, I didn't care for. Then she sent one, the third one I really liked. I wrote about it, and she just emailed me yesterday and was saying that the EP is out and she wanted me to listen to it. But what she said was that while she was taking hormones, it takes about 15 months for them to do their magic or whatever they do. And the album was about that. And she wanted it to be something that people who are in that same situation have something to relate to. So I totally get that. And so do you think, is your music informed, or are you trying to especially make it toward the LGBTQ community, or is it just kind of, it happens to be, does that make any sense, that question?
Struggle, the conflict and strife of being gay in a predominantly straight world, or like that kind of a thing, and like that whatever, if there's some darkness that would come out in that sense.
Right.
I mean, I don't think so. It could have been something that was inherent in terms of forming my early years of darkness. I think that's something a lot of gay people can relate to, and trans people, and really anyone who is a minority in some way, of not quite fitting in, not fitting in
Sure.
when you're a kid. And nowadays, being gay, at least in the Western world, is a lot less of a big deal. It's just not a big deal at all, depending on where you are and what social circles you're running in. But yeah, I remember.
Well, artists, for so long, artists.
It all throughout it, or like Dyke, or like all that stuff. And yeah, that's a tangent, but you know what I mean.
Sure. Well, that's something that I think, like you said, anybody who's out of the margins of society, so to speak, which I've always gravitated toward the quote unquote abnormal anyways, in music and people, everything. But yeah, in times when it wasn't safe to be themselves, at least you're going to internalize it into your art. And so it's probably going to be a little darker just because you can't be open about it. So I know we've been going on a long time and I don't want to keep you too long. I just wanted to ask you what other artists or music you're listening to right now that kind of informs your, not necessarily inform your sound, but that you just enjoy, like who you listen to right now. I thought maybe you'd tell me about somebody I can check out that I haven't heard of, or, Are there any artists out there that you're listening to?
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned, so I feel like I listen to like everything that you listen to as well. But have you heard Helena Deland, I think her name is. She's like, I noticed that you're like, speaking of gorilla versus bear, like you mentioned them on your blog. They're basically like, she's on gorilla versus bear right now. One of her tracks
Okay.
called Lils, and I'm just really impressed by it. Like I think it's really unusual, but it's quite smooth at the same time, and it's weird because she's skirting this really fine line. Interesting, like, subject matter. But you should definitely look up that song. I'll send it to you on Instagram afterward. And also,
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Arlo Parks, I like her a lot. I'm a big fan of like Khruangbin, or however the hell you pronounce them. But I've been listening to them for a while. Salt. That's a band I love. SAULT.
I know, I do know them.
Yeah. So those are them for right now. That's them. Arlo Parks.
Awesome.
She's queer too, so that's interesting. Like, her subject stuff I can relate to, what she talks about in her songs.
Well, I appreciate you talking with me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the audio from this, and it's going to be part of the podcast that I will put up next Monday, before I play your song, or after I play your song. I haven't decided. We've spoken so long, so I'll probably condense it, but I'll take the audio. I have a show on Boogaloo Radio that emanates from London every Monday.
Awesome.
And yeah, so we'll put that on there, and that'll be cool. I think next time if I ever talk to you, I might go. Oh, what happened? I think maybe we'll try it on Zoom, because this has been a little glitchy, but I enjoy the immediateness of this and how it's live, and how if we make stupid mistakes, then they're on there. That's fine. So.
Yeah. Totally.
And but anyways, super nice to meet you. Had a great time speaking with you, and love your stuff, and just keep in touch.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and thanks for the great write-up. And yeah, cool. All sounds great. Keep me posted.
Awesome. Okay, have a good day.
All right. Okay. Bye, Rob. Bye. Have a good one.
Okay.
Nice
Bye-bye. Bye.